Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a US election special, an update, a kind of weekly update. There's been so much going on. I have more tabs you can even imagine ever possible, as Trump would say. More tabs than you've ever seen in your life that you didn't think was possible. That number is the biggest number, the best number. I've got a lot of tabs and I need to get through them all because otherwise my brain will not be purged. So this video could go on for about 4 hours. I will not let it do so. I'll be as concise as I possibly can, but also there's an awful lot to get through. So I might have to split this up into sort of 3 different videos. Right. We're going to start with the news that's been going around the last couple of days, which is that Kamala Harris has come out with her health report. That basically says she's totally fit and healthy, really. I think some allergies was the only thing on there. And Donald Trump has refused to release his health report. And he is the only president that appears to have done that since they've started doing this. And the question is, when someone doesn't do something like this, they would surely be hiding something. There's no reason you wouldn't release a health report unless your health wasn't great. Now, you've had surrogates like Mike Johnson then come on and try and defend Trump for not releasing his health report. And then he says, it's unnecessary for the 78-year-old Trump to release his medical reports because everyone can see he's healthy. Oh, that's fine then. Everyone can see he's healthy. It's okay. That's fine. He doesn't require as much sleep as the average person. He's an unusual figure. Damn straight he is. I mean, there's no way that man is healthy. I mean, for goodness sake, he wears adult diapers, adult nappies. So I don't know if you know that. Most people seem to know that. But he wears adult diapers, which is, okay, fair enough. Should that be a concern? I mean, there's a famously Midas Touch released a video at one of his recent rallies where he sounded like he had almost soiled himself, and that did the rounds. But yeah, so lots of people kind of talk about that as being an element of his health. You've got his weight issues, but actually the main consideration, and as it should be for someone who's running for president to be in one of the most important positions in the world that has the demands of huge amount of cognitive load on you, is his cognitive functioning. And that is a super, super worrying. We've got a whole section on some of the things he's saying that just make no sense, or not being able to complete sentences or words. Just is super worrying. So that would be my concern. If I was an American voter, I'd be concerned that he just doesn't have the cognitive ability to do the job in hand. Kamala Harris has answered to this. I have no idea why and this started with Trump, why they insist on doing interviews right next to a jet plane. Or a helicopter.
Hey guys, so you guys, I released my medical records today. I appreciate you. So today I released my medical records, as has, I believe, every candidate for president of the United States except Donald Trump in this election cycle. And it's just a further example of his lack of transparency, that on top of his unwillingness to debate again, his unwillingness to do an interview with 60 Minutes, which again is part of the norm of what anyone running for president of the United States does. And I think that it's obvious that his team, at least, does not want the American people to see everything about who he is. And you put that on top of even the most recent reports of General Milley, one of the people who worked the closest with Donald Trump, referring to him as being unstable. And it is clear to me that he and his team do not want the American people to really see what it is that he is doing and whether or not he actually is fit to do the job of being president of the United States.
And I think that says it all. So sorry about the being next to a jet. Ugh. But why would you not agree to do a debate? And I believe he's turned down actually doing on Fox News now as well. Like, it shows that his team, as she says, at least his team is not confident that he'll be able to do a good enough job debating with Kamala Harris. Why not go on 60 Minutes? it's clear that his team thinks that he is not able to do a decent enough job of answering somewhat difficult questions. And yet, that's who you want to vote in for the president of the US. Someone who refuses to release medical records, refuses to debate, and refuses to be on potentially challenging interviews. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So, as Alex Cole here says, Trump refuses to debate, refuses to release his taxes. That's another one. Harris and Walsh has released 15 years of taxes, and JD Vance and Trump have refused to release their taxes. He also refuses to release his health records, refuses to do interviews that fact check him. The 78-year-old is definitely hiding something. Absolutely. Okay. I want to just run you through this. This is an excerpt from Brian Tyler Cohen.
Now, Trump might be bouncing from swing state to swing state ahead of the election, but it seems that his inability to know where he is at any given moment in time has finally come back to bite him. Now, to set the stage really quickly, you may remember Trump recently traveled to Detroit where he did this.
That's up for...
So what we're going to hear is Trump talking at Detroit and slagging off Detroit, and we're going to return to this in the tab group I have up here, question mark, where, like, what are you saying? This is one of those instances, and people are unsure whether he knew that or even didn't know that. Like, he just kind of forgot where he was, slagged off Detroit, and then you're like, okay, that's a pretty inopportune moment to slag off Detroit because you're in Detroit, or you meant that, in which case, what are you doing? You're going to a swing state, you're trying to ingratiate yourself among the electorate that you desperately need to vote for you, and you're slagging off the city that you're in. Just incredible. Anyway, the Detroit Economic Club, he's done some speeches recently. Like, that one was just terrible. He did another one, I think, in Detroit as well. Am I correct? There were two there. He's done this recent one in Coachella, which I haven't listened to, but apparently is like his worst one yet. Even though he trumps them up as being these huge things. He said it was there were 100,000 people there, and yet they only had fire marshal approval for something like 15,000. Anyway, it's all kind of bombastic rhetoric around these speeches, but actually the speeches are really low energy, really not successful rallies or speeches, in my opinion.
For whoever is going to be a next president, I think Kamala, it's not going to be high on her list. I don't think anything that we're talking about today is high on her list. The whole country is going to be like, you want to know the truth? It'll be like Detroit. Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president. You're going to have a mess on your hands. She destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed, along with Newsom, California. And we're not going to let her do that to this country. We're not going to let it happen. So,
and he caught himself from, like, I think, saying, you know, she did this to California, she did this to San Francisco, even though he had said previously that 15 years ago San Francisco was great. And of course, that's when Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris were running San Francisco type thing. And so he'd had to come out and correct himself on that. But here he was saying, like, they've destroyed here. You don't. If you vote for these guys, the whole country is going to be like Detroit. He says, speaking to Detroit. Like, we're doing all right, thanks.
That is Trump trashing Detroit in Detroit. Brilliant move, Donald. No notes. Well, here's the update. This is now what's playing during the live broadcast of the Detroit Tigers baseball playoff game on Saturday and the Detroit Lions football game on Sunday.
So what happens here is that Trump ends up giving ammunition to the other side's campaign by doing all these faux pas in public, and then that being recorded and being played back, or they take that idea and then run with it. And this is a great advert.
They said we were dead.
Detroit waving the white flag, the city filing for bankruptcy.
That our best days were behind us. That living here is like
living in hell.
But you know what we said? We said, F that. We rebuilt ourselves. We looked out for each other, got our hands dirty, and put in the hard work. And this guy, he don't know anything about that. We are a city of winners, of up-and-comers, of builders, the Motor City. Bigger and better. Here, we believe in freedom. We don't bow down to nobody, and we never will. And so what Donald Trump doesn't understand, or care to learn, is that when he said
Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president.
that he should be so goddamn lucky,
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
That, I think, is one of the single best campaign adverts I have seen. Now, of course, that's going to be just for Detroit. But if you want to motivate Detroit voters to get out and vote, and that, you know, you're talking swing state areas, this is what you want to do. This is how you play it. I think that's an incredibly powerful advert.
The ad is narrated by Detroit native and actor Courtney B. Vance, and not for nothing, but the line, when Trump says our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president, Trump doesn't understand that he should be so goddamn lucky, is utterly devastating. It's also worth noting that Michigan is a swing state, and Detroit is the biggest city in that state. It's also a city where Joe Biden took a staggering 94% of the vote in 2020 on his way to win the battleground state. And on top of that, Detroit currently has the highest absentee ballot return rate in the entire state of Michigan, and is 9% above the statewide rate. In other words, not only is Trump trashing the biggest city in this key state, not only did his stupid comments immediately become an ad that would air during the biggest broadcast that Michiganders would all be watching, but that city is right now voting well above every other major municipality in the state. And something tells me that Trump isn't exactly activating swing voters by telling them where they live sucks. Now, as far
So this is really important. Like I always tell you, it's about shoring up your base, making sure that they are enthused enough to get out and vote for you. Then taking as many of those centre voters as you can, those undecided and independents, and then it's nicking voters from the other side, right? You want to get as broad a tent as possible. Going to Detroit in a swing state and slagging off Detroit, is that going to do what I just stated? No, it's not. The mayor of Detroit came out and said, I think he was there at that talk. I saw him interviewed, and he's like, if you look at our stats at the moment, we are doing really well. We're on the way up, and this is really good. And, that's just not on for him to come and say, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, for Trump to come along and speak in that kind of way. And it's just like, if I was a campaign manager for the Republicans, I'd just be like, come on, man, this is tight and we've got to get everyone we possibly can. Stop slagging people off. All you are doing is playing people down. You're doing them down. You're doing the American economy down. You're doing the US down as kind of like, make America great again. Yeah, okay, but everything you're saying is showing that America is terrible. And that plays into the MAGA, so therefore that we need to make it great again. But it's that real negative, you can overdo that, and he's overdoing it to the point where America is terrible. Everything about America is terrible. The foreign policy, the domestic policy, the kind of sense of identity, the vision of the future, the vision of the present. I don't think it plays particularly well. Yes, fear can sell more than joy, but I think you can take that too far, and I think Donald Trump is doing that. Okay, so now moving on. This is how you do it. Ask every single Republican this question every single time they're on TV. This should have been standard practice for the last 4 years. So I've talked to you about this before, which is every time JD Vance is on TV, he's getting hammered with and it started with Stephanopoulos here saying, can you say unequivocally that Joe Biden won the 2020 election and that Trump lost?
So it's very clear you're not going to condemn the baseless suggestion the Democrats are behind the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. I want to ask you another question.
There's so many. Please, anything.
Well, you have the.
So sorry, this is not JD Vance. This is Mike Johnson. But this is happening to JD Vance all the time. But clearly, I think a memo has gone out to, or at least these news presenters and journalists have seen other people doing it. It is now a thing that every time you get a Republican on, a prominent surrogate or JD Vance, it's did Biden win the election? Did Trump lose the 2020 election?
Opportunity to condemn it if you want. You have that opportunity, but we can move on now. I do want to ask you a question that Senator Vance did not answer at this week's debate. Can you say unequivocally that Joe Biden won the 2020 election and Donald Trump lost?
See, this is the game that is always played by mainstream media with leading Republicans. It's a gotcha game. You want us to litigate things that happened 4 years ago when we're talking about the future. We're not going to talk about what happened in 2020. We're going to talk about 2024 and how we're going to solve the problems for the American people. I think this game that's played all the time, I'm not going to engage in it. We're not talking about that. Joe Biden has been the president for almost 4 years. Everybody needs to get over this and move forward. That's what we need to talk about. What happens on November 5 and the days after that? I think that's really important, and that's what the American demand for us to talk about.
So like Senator Vance, you cannot say unequivocally that Joe Biden won the 2020 election and Donald Trump lost?
George, I'm the Speaker of the House. I work with the President of the United States all the time.
And so it goes on. He just keeps getting asked, and he keeps not answering.
How about another hurricane headed toward the country? How about Israel being fired upon by Iran? How about the rising crime rates that have everybody alarmed around this country, and the cost of living because hardworking families can't afford to do it? We have.
So what aboutery? What about this? Yeah, but can you answer this? So that took place a number of times, and then JD Vance had this yet again in the latest one here.
And with this, in interview after interview, question after question, and in the debate, you refused to say that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. So I'm just going to assume that if I ask you 50 times whether he lost the election, you would not acknowledge that he did. Is that correct?
Martha, you asked this question. I've been asked this question 10 times in the past couple of weeks. Of course, Donald
I wonder why, because you don't answer it.
Trump and I believe there were problems in 2020. You haven't asked about inflation.
No, I'm sorry. Let's stick to this.
People,
I know.
American people want us to talk about how to make their lives better. They don't want us to.
Why won't you say that?
Because, Martha, I believe that in 2020, when big tech firms were censoring American citizens, that created very serious problems. And by the way, Martha, you're a journalist. You represent the American media. Look at the polling on this. A lot of Americans feel like they were silenced in the run-up to the 2020 election. That is such a bigger issue. That fundamental problem than me and Donald Trump talking about it. And unfortunately,
but
Martha,
I don't understand why you won't just say it if you believe it.
Won't just say what? That I think the 2020 election had some problems? I've said that repeatedly.
Did Donald Trump lose? That's the question, and you know that's the question.
Martha, I've said repeatedly, I think the 2020 election had problems. You want to say rigged? You want to say he won? Use whatever vocabulary term you want. I want to focus on the fact that we had big technology firms censoring our fellow citizens.
It's just cringeworthy. And I think every single interview with these guys needs to have that question in. So we aren't doing anything else. We're not talking about anything else to answer this question. Answer this question. It's like one team has been given a memo that's how you answer that question, and the journalists have been given a memo. We've got to ask this question, and so it will go on. It's incredible. There was this I think really spoke volumes to me about who Trump is. He picks up a prayer book and then says, do you want me to sign it? So this is visiting the gravesite of Lubavitcher Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson in New York today. God, I wrote an article on this to do with is it cognitive dissonance research? No. Schneerson, Rabbi Schneerson, one of my books has a load of research done on the Lubavitcher movements. Anyway, while visiting the gravesite of Schneerson in New York today, Donald Trump can be heard asking the rabbi standing next to him if he wants him to sign the prayer book.
Yeah, can I take that? Would you like me to sign this? I love that. Thank you.
It's yours. Would you like me to sign it? It's yours. It's a prayer book. Yeah, but would you like me to sign it? Just like, it's all about me. I'm the famous guy here. Do you want me to sign that? Do you want me to sign that? Can I sign your breast? Oh, no, you're a rabbi. Can I, you've got anyone with a Hooters t-shirt? Can I sign it? Yeah, and so I told you earlier about the whole Trump wearing adult diapers and then being caught on camera or at a rally having an expulsion, shall I say. And actually this came up in Obama's speech recently at one of his rallies. So Obama's been out on the campaign trail, been quite effective. Although Obama's speeches have been brilliant, absolutely on point, just marvelous rhetorical pieces. However, I wonder just in general about rallies in general, is like the people who go to the rallies, watch them. People who are really engaged, watch them. You know, if you're a high information voter, you watch these rallies and you are hanging on every word. But it's the low information voters out there that you need to get voting. And that's where social media comes in. That's where podcasts come in. I don't know how useful rallies are, particularly, especially when you're getting it. And the Obama rally is, if you were a low information voter and you went there and you experienced him saying that, you would be like, oh yeah, it's clear who I need to vote for. But that doesn't happen. So how do you get low information voters? How do you reach them? That's the big question.
Or a car seat. Or diapers. I remember buying diapers. I remember the first time I went in the store, right after Malia was born. I was like, what? That's how much diapers cost?
Talk about inflation.
I remember changing diapers. You think Donald Trump ever changed a diaper?
So before we get on to like the joke bit, which actually came from someone in the audience, it's a really good point. And I think that this would be a really effective advert. It's like, you're worried about the cost of milk. You're worried about the cost of diapers. You're worried about the cost of this. We are with you on this. I know how much these things cost. I remember putting a diaper on my own baby. I remember that time. You know, you want a Democrat surrogate doing that in an advert. And then so the best adverts are contrast adverts where you say, but does Donald Trump have a clue of how much diapers cost? Does he even put a diaper on a baby? Do you think he cuddled his babies and changed them? Was that something you can imagine him doing? You know, there's some really interesting contrast there that I think goes to the sort of person that Donald Trump really is. And I don't think he's that empathetic, caring, kind of loving father figure who would change diapers and whatnot. But anyway, that's me going off on one.
Donald Trump ever changed a diaper? Yeah. I almost said that, but I decided I shouldn't say it.
So I think someone called out his own, right? Do you think Donald Trump's ever changed a diaper? His own. Because of this whole thing about him wearing adult diapers.
Or a car seat.
Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that one in there. But so we've had Obama out on the campaign trail. Now, talking about the sort of character that Donald Trump is, there's a new book out claiming that he effectively, as Stephanie Kennedy here says, evidence has been uncovered that Donald Trump enriched himself at the expense of taxpayers while Trump was president. He stole $1.7 billion in revenue and directed the funds to flow through his businesses. Further, Trump did everything possible to ensure the majority of the stolen money came from the American taxpayers. Additionally, Stop the Steal profiteering raked in more than $500 million for Trump, less than $9 million of which he had been spent on lawyers. Trump is spending the remainder of the funds on himself. On an agonizing example of the thieving fundraising practices of Stop the Steal, the Trump campaign stole a man's $3,000 as he lay dying in a hospice. Okay, so a source is Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist David K. Johnston. Now, this is all to do with the emoluments clause. I wrote about this back when Trump was president, and the idea that he would have all of these dignitaries staying over in Trump hotels, that he'd have all his official meetings at Mar-a-Lago or Trump Trump facilities. And of course, he's enriching himself on the back of being president. and he didn't really divest himself of all his interests before becoming president, and so on and so forth. And it was just the whole thing. Even when he was president, it was all about grifting. It was just grifting.
All right, a new book is pulling back the curtain on just how much former President Trump enriched himself and his family while he was in office, finding that nearly $1.7 billion in revenue flowed through him and his organizations during his 4 years as commander-in-chief. Joining us now, investigative reporter David K. Johnston and author of The Big Cheat, How Donald Trump Fleeced America and Enriched Himself and His Family. David, thank you so much for being...
And I'm not going to play any more of that because I've got so much to share with you, but it's just another thing to, I think, invalidate Trump from being president. It's just, I keep using the phrase, it blows my mind, but it does blow my mind that people... like almost half of the population think that this guy is the best choice. He's just a grifting. He's been found liable by a jury of his peers for sexual assaults. He's cheated on his his second wife with his third wife. He cheated on his third wife with a porn star. He's like, this is the guy you want as. I mean, really? Anyway, right. So he had a rally at Coachella recently at the festival. No, not at the festival site. So the Trump's rally was on a private plot of land. Now, what happened? And there were loads of these sort of tweets and truths that went out complaining about what happened after, is that they were bussed in and they weren't bussed out, and people were stuck for like 2 hours. And then they were complaining that it was the mayor's fault, or it was somehow the Democrats' fault, because of course cognitive dissonance reduction, they can't blame Trump. Trump is a cult leader. I've got this core belief in my brain that he is just the most amazing. He's divine. He can do no wrong. I've got evidence that he has done wrong. So this dissonance needs to be reduced. And it's almost always the case that your core beliefs maintain. You very rarely change your mind. We're not very good at changing our mind. So what you do is you do something with the evidence. So the evidence that it's Donald Trump that's screwed up here becomes, well, it can't have been Donald Trump that screwed up. It's someone else that screwed up. And whose fault it is, well, it has to be therefore the Democrats. So because we're in California and this has all gone wrong, it can't be the organization, the people that put this in place. It has to be Californian Democrats. And so all of these kind of tweets have gone out blaming the Democrats. And they're like, we had nothing to do with it. It was your bloody campaign rally. And if you can't sort out getting the people out there afterwards, that's on you.
Let me make sure I understand this. Donald Trump held a rally in Coachella in California. And it was on this farm, this private venue, and had 20 buses, bus thousands of people in, okay? Anywhere from 4 to 6 miles away from where they were parked, and they made them sit there in the heat and listen to his same old word salad, and then left them there. Apparently there was like one bus. Apparently the buses just didn't come. Look at this.
Guys, we came to the Trump rally, and this is the aftermath.
This is at 10 o'clock. It ended at
7. So I don't know how long do we have to wait here before we can get to the bus and go back to our car. We waited like 7 hours to just get in the rally, and now it's time to go back. So hopefully we don't have to wait for that long to get in the bus, because our cars is back there at the parking, which is like 5-6 miles away.
And I shit you not, they were like calling on Vivek Ramaswamy and JD Vance to like save them in tweets, also trying to blame anybody but their orange savior. Since we know Trump is notorious for not paying his bills, I bet he didn't pay for those buses. And the fact that he did not make arrangements to get them out of there, he does not care about you. Also, there was a bus filled with Proud Boys going to this event, so that's worth noting. Anyways, tots and pears.
There you go. I think that's worth knowing, and is pretty, I think, indicative of Trump and his campaign. Now, just another bit of, well, not so much news, but someone who has been on the news. Pete Buttigieg is one of the single best surrogates for the Democrats. He is so good, and he's so good on Fox News, and he's so good at just putting people in their place and you know, recounting facts when they need to be recounted. And here he is, although got so much open, I am to refresh this one.
Talking about choice growth. He didn't keep his promise to drain the swamp. He did have a pandemic to deal with.
This is about it's about women's right to choose, but it's also about upholding promises. And the gist of this is that there are only 2 promises that Trump upheld, and the rest he just completely failed. But it's also putting the newscaster right on actually what Trump is really saying when he says, I've taken it to the states in the repealing of Roe versus Wade.
Was the right thing to do. But Donald Trump made a promise when he was a candidate, one of the few promises he actually kept, by the way. You know, he didn't keep his promise of 6% economic growth. He didn't keep his promise to drain the swamp.
He did have a pandemic to deal with.
But even before the pandemic, even before the pandemic, America went into a manufacturing recession, which really hurt places like where I come from in the industrial Midwest. But anyway, my point is, he broke his promise for that kind of economic growth. He broke his promise to pass an infrastructure bill, right? He said he would do that. He failed to do it. The Biden-Harris administration got it done. He even broke his promise to that January 6th mob when he said, I will be at your side when you march down to the Capitol. But he actually did keep 2 promises. He kept his promise to destroy the right to choose in this country, and he kept his promise on tax cuts for the rich. And if you want to know what a second Trump term would be like, I would start by looking at those rare promises that he actually managed to keep.
He did say that he wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade, but again, send it to the states where they are hashing this out
empower the states to eliminate women's access to abortion. And also, as you know, the Republican Party continues to be interested in a national abortion ban.
Which he's disavowed completely.
Yeah, he's disavowed a lot of things. I don't believe him. Because he lies all the time.
You think that his pledge that he would not pass a national ban is one that...
It's one that's going to go down with most of the promises that he's made and broken.
Let's talk about this, though.
And that sounds like just a throwaway insult, but actually what Pete Buttigieg does there is talk about those broken promises. So it's like, you know, inductive reasoning is philosophically how you would describe it, but this is like you're betting on form. Here's a guy that's lied, broken his promises, here, and here. He's promised this. Do you think he's going to uphold that promise? No, because actually I look back on all these other promises and he didn't do that for them. So yeah, there you go. Right, and the last bit on the kind of general news, bits and pieces before we get into these segments that are more aligned. This is Kenneth Copeland. Kenneth Copeland is a televangelist. I've written articles on this guy previously. He flies very big, expensive jets. He's got more money than he should do if he was properly following the teachings of Jesus. It's this whole prosperity gospel thing where, you know, you can extract whatever you like from the Bible. So, you know, if you like slavery, then the Bible's for you. If you hate slavery, the Bible's for you. If you like money, the Bible's for you. If you hate money, the Bible's for you. You know, you can extract whatever you like and then create some kind of theology that supports that. Now, here he's grifted on the prosperity gospel, but my goodness, he doesn't talk some absolute nonsense here. This is him going down the whole culture wars narrative while espousing Donald Trump and denigrating Kamala Harris.
They're fighting and trying to ruin their lives with perverted ideas and perverted ways. The people that are addicted to pornography and addicted to the things of the flesh in this world. And we break the power. We break the power of the homosexual, lesbian spirits that are trying to ruin our children and ruin this nation. Get down from there. We sit by the throne. You are under our feet.
So, I mean, I didn't show you the whole beginning of that, but it's basically, yeah. So, those homosexual, lesbian spirits, that's what this election is really about. Okay, we're going to go on to disinformation, one of my pet hates, as you well know. And we're going to start with a podium set up for Ron DeSantis, where he's going to talk about the hurricane, obviously in Florida. Ron DeSantis, who ran for president, who was touted as being the next president previously, or at least the next Republican nominee, didn't quite happen. So here we see people loading up debris behind his podium, where like the city just behind is fine, thank you very much. And it goes to show how much is put on. They're unloading debris from trucks and stacking it behind a podium for DeSantis. Caught in today's live stream, adding debris behind a podium before DeSantis presser. Ron has no shame. He spent weeks accusing anyone else of politicizing the disaster, everyone else, while ordering workers to window dress his press conference. This is absolutely incredible. Okay, so let's get on to some hurricane disinformation again. Trump announces this, by the way, this is massively egregious. This is absolutely terrible.
And we'll force it down his throat, and we'll say, Gavin.
He's talking about Gavin Newsom, that's Trump getting to me. He is talking about the California governor and threatening him with, if he doesn't do what Trump wants, then not giving wildfire relief funds to California.
And we'll force it down his throat. And we'll say, Gavin, if you don't do it, we're not giving you any of that fire money that we send you all the time for all the forest fires that you have. It's not hard to do. And we'll force.
So this is absolutely disgusting, because we have just had a couple of weeks of Republicans slag off Democrats for not getting funding and for blaming them for actually generating hurricanes to particularly take out Republican areas, and this whole idea that funding isn't coming because the funding's been politicized. And that's come from Trump himself. And then he stands up in a rally and says, and literally threatens California that if they don't do what he wants, he will not give them funding for wildfire disaster relief. It's unbelievable. It's just massive hypocrites. It's just incredible that people aren't seeing through this complete charade. Insane. So here he is advocating for constraining relief on a political basis, which he did do in North Carolina to Roy Cooper, the North Carolina Democratic governor, back in Hurricane Matthew, and he did do with the wildfires in California previously, I believe, and it was only until, and this came from Olivia Troy, who was a Republican on his administration, who's now gone against him because of stuff like this, where he was not going to give them funding because there weren't enough Republican voters, until she pointed out that the areas of the wildfire, there were 6 million GOP voters, and then he was like, oh, okay, give them funding. And then you got Puerto Rico as well. And yeah, just incredible. Okay, a flat out lie from Donald Trump. So Donald Trump on Truth Social said, it's just come out that Democrats in Washington and the Democrat governor's office of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, were blocking people and money from coming into North Carolina. So here's your example. They're blocking money to these disaster relief areas on a political basis. And then he goes to a rally and says, I'm going to do that. What? They were blocking people and money from coming into North Carolina to help people in desperate need. Biden knew about it, and so did Kamala. It's all over the place. A horrible situation, all caps. It will make it up. I will make it up to everyone when we take office on January 20th. Hold on, I'm coming, all caps. It's a horrible situation, all caps. That's a horrible situation that you have just threatened to do if you are put in power. How dare you say that? Bill Kristol, former Republican, says, I don't know what you would call him, a former Republican voter. He's still, I guess, a Republican, but he's not voting for Trump. Quote, I have chased every rabbit hole where folks have said FEMA turned something away or refused to do this or confiscated that. And I found every single one of those to be false. And that's not Bill Kristol. Bill Kristol's quoting the Republican from North Carolina, Edwards, I don't know his first name, and he said that on Thursday. None of them have been corroborated at all. So you've got a North Carolinian Republican saying all of these claims that are coming out, which would include, by the way, Donald Trump's own claim there about North Carolina. And you got a North Carolinian Republican saying they have all been false. Who is spreading that disinformation? J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, the two people at the top of the ticket, are liars. There's no evidence, says Snopes, of former President Donald Trump having donated any of the $25 million from his own money to the hurricane relief effort. So he started up a GoFundMe page, and none of that money is coming from him. And indeed, he doesn't appear to have donated a single penny. Then disinformation here. We have a claim from Greg Price that Kamala is using a teleprompter during her town hall with Univision, LMFAO. Right, so this was a town hall where she's talking and answering questions from audience members, and the claim here is that actually she's just talking from the teleprompter. It's all set up, all this kind of stuff.
Victim of crime. Are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? The only question I ever ask is, are you okay? And sadly, we have seen over the last 2 weeks since Hurricane Helene, victim of crime.
So the idea is that there's some small black screen there at the bottom with some white writing on. And he's like, she's using a teleprompter. And this is my favourite debunk so far of this whole campaign. And it's my favourite because it's from someone who was working on the TV crew in there. He says, that's not true, Daniel Coronel. The teleprompter that displays a text written in Spanish was a support element for the town hall moderator. So that teleprompter is for this guy here. I can tell you this with first-hand knowledge because I was in charge of the television program. This is a guy who was in charge of that whole television program. Is like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. But it's this kind of stuff that gets out there. It's just lies that go out there and it finds purchase on all these people. And then you can't undo that. Once it's out there, you can't undo the damage it does to people's brains. It's that kind of disinformation that just is so irritating. And yeah, here's another bit of disinformation. Donald Trump says nobody goes to Harris rallies. This is Phoenix. Nobody goes. He says nobody goes. They're all bussed in. And then he busses in all these people to Coachella and then doesn't bus them out. Now that is excitement. Genuine intensity and excitement. Question is, does that translate to votes? And that's what the Harris campaign has to sort out. Now that volume is toned down, but yeah, you can see that that is a very full crowd there or venue. Now we have this. So at Coachella, Trump claimed 100,000 people attended. If you count the metal seats, there's space for about 2,700. The stands behind hold 1,600. So at the very most, there were 4,300 attending. That's 4% of his claimed attendance. Yet it lies every single day. Now, actually, there was probably more than that. Indeed, there were not 100,000 at Trump's Coachella rally. The county gave a permit for a maximum occupancy of 15,000. So at the max, or at least legally, there would have been 15,000. To say 100,000 is just huge. Secondly, why did Trump abandon them all and they got stranded with no buses? 7 hours it took them to get in, 3 hours at least stranded afterwards. Yeah. It's not how to look after your voters. Right, more disinformation here. So Elon Musk's mother, this has now since been deleted. So she's deleted her tweet, quite rightly. It's terrible. But the internet never forgets. So Elon's mother is encouraging people to commit election crimes. So Elon Musk's mother came out and said this. In Butler, Pennsylvania, she initially said, the Democrats have given us another option. You don't have to register to vote. On election day, you have 10 fake names, go to 10 polling booths and vote 10 times. That's 100 votes. And it's not illegal. Maybe we should work the system too. So she's kind of implying that this is what the Democrats do, except it's not. There's no evidence that that's the case. And she's now saying to her audience, Elon Musk's mother, Elon Musk himself has 190 million followers. She has, I don't know how many. Goes out and says you should have 10 fake names and vote in 10 different polling booths with all of those. That's 100 votes instead of one. She then came out in Butler, Pennsylvania. We've just heard that the Republicans will make sure no illegals vote. Ignore my previous post. So she's like, oh, now I've heard that illegals are not going to be able to vote in Pennsylvania, in Butler. So yeah, no, forget that last one. And then in the end, she deleted it. As Brian Tyler Cohen said, this is illegal, and I have little doubt that Elon's mum will probably be responsible for some idiots getting prosecuted for trying this. absolutely incredible. Elon's mum realised she'd have legal exposure by encouraging people to commit voter fraud to help Republicans, so she made up some dumb excuse to claim it was no longer necessary. Now, moving on to Elon Musk, he stole someone's America handle on Twitter. So at America, someone had that for ages. He took it because his America super PAC, he wanted to have that handle, so he just stole that. Anyway, there's a little article on that. But there you go. Over the weekend, Twitter took down the America handle, at America handle, from the original user who registered it. The handle now belongs to Elon Musk and his super PAC set up to support Donald Trump. Here's everything we know. There's an article on that. And the New York Times released a really big article. I want to go into this in full depth. It deserves a video all of its own. But basically, his campaign, Trump's campaign has aligned itself, or sorry, Elon Musk has aligned himself with Trump's campaign completely and utterly. In fact, was it Klippenstein, the journalist who released the leaked J.D. Vance file from the Trump campaign, was banned off Twitter. Then after this article came out and people realized that Klippenstein wasn't banned because of doxing, supposed doxing, he was banned because Trump asked Elon Musk to do that. He's now reinstated Klippenstein and reinstated the links to all that documentation. In other words, the supposed stuff that was supposedly doxing is all allowed to be there. In other words, it was nothing to do with doxing. It was all because Donald Trump asked Elon Musk to take that person off Twitter. Absolutely incredible. Anyway, New York Times released a really big article confirming coordination between Trump campaign and Elon Musk's Twitter, exposing what may be the largest election interference scheme in history. This is disinformation. This is propaganda from within the US, but you can argue First Amendment, freedom of speech, etc., etc. How much is freedom of speech? How much is election interference? How much is by disinformation, etc., etc. So, rather than go through the New York Times article, let's just look at Midas Touch's synopsis. New York Times has been able to confirm for the first time that there's been coordination between the two. Quote from the article: the relationship has proved significant in other ways. After a reporter's publication of hacked Trump campaign information last month, the campaign connected with Twitter or X to prevent the circulation of links to the material on the platform, according to two of the people with knowledge of the events. X eventually blocked links to the material, that's a J.D. Vance file, and suspended the reporter's account. The relationship at issue is the one between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, says Midas Touch. While that note is a small portion of the larger story, which outlines the ever-growing relationship between Musk and Trump, it underscores the benefits Trump has received since Musk has thrown his support behind the Trump campaign. Earlier this year, there was a reporting of a hacked material obtained by the foreign power from the Trump campaign. According to the New York Times, the Trump campaign connected with Twitter to prevent the circulation of links to the released material, and as a result, Twitter actually suspended the reporter's account and blocked links to the material at issue. Setting aside the bombshell, the New York Times highlights a close relationship between Trump and Musk. Public recently saw Musk attend a Trump rally in Pennsylvania, where he spoke at a Trump rally for the first time. In addition, Musk recently created a super PAC called America PAC and gave it the @America handle. On Twitter, that PAC has since been raising money and spending money for the sole purpose of helping Donald Trump win in November. According to New York Times, Musk and his team have set up a war room of sorts in Pittsburgh, where Musk strategizes with a team of lawyers and public relations professionals to help Trump win. In fact, I think the super PAC that Musk has set up has been outsourced some of the grassroots campaigning, door-to-door knocking, and actually there are claims that it's not going very well. They don't really know what they're doing, and actually the ground campaign is far better with the Democrats than the Republicans. Not only do they have more money, but they're actually better organized. While Twitter is supposed to be a platform for the free flow of ideas, this level of coordination has not been public until today. Whether it impacts the opinions of voters, probably not, on the platform, however, remains to be seen. Right. This is how it started. Elon Musk said, for Twitter to deserve public trust, it must be politically neutral, which effectively means upsetting the far right and far left equally. And this is how it is going now. Trump Vance must win. I can't handle 4 years of seeing and hearing Kamala and Walz. That would be cruel and unusual punishment. So he's just overtly going against what he promised, basically, for Twitter. Okay, in terms of the kind of MAGA mentality going on, talking about fake news and disinformation, actually these MAGA voters seem to claim everything is fake. So when it goes against them, it's fake. The news goes against them, it's fake news. So news is fake, COVID is fake, polls are fake, science is fake, elections are fake, the drop in crime is fake, The jobs reports are fake. Trump's convictions are fake. Do you know what's real? Conspiracy theories. But conspiracy theories are real. That sums them up to a T. Again, this is only the subset of republicanism, the Trump MAGA republicanism. And another way of disinformation really happening is through, I guess this is misinformation, so it's not overtly done, but there is this sane washing of the Trump campaign. It happens through the way things are worded. So this arrangement and editorial gloss may stand for capture the journalism about the entire campaign. So one title says, in interviews, Kamala Harris continues to bob and weave. Her media swing showed how she often responds to uncomfortable questions by acknowledging them, yet not fully answering them. And then the next title, in remarks about migrants, Donald Trump invoked his long-held fascination with genes and genetics. What it doesn't say is that Trump talks about eugenics and fascist ideology. That's how that article is same washing, almost whitewashing, but that comes in with its own connotations. Fascism there. It's absolutely incredible. And then we move on to, well, we're talking still about disinformation. Here we have Adam Kinzinger quoting from Obama here in one of his speeches, intentionally deceiving people in their most valuable time. So we've got Obama himself railing against this kind of disinformation.
And President Biden and Vice President Harris were down there meeting with local officials and comforting families, asking how they could help. And Donald Trump at a rally just started making up stories about the Biden administration withholding aid from Republican areas and siphoning off aid to give to undocumented immigrants. Just made the stuff up. Everybody knew it wasn't true. Even local Republicans said it was not true. And now the people of Florida are dealing with another devastating storm. And I want you to watch what happens over the next few days, just like the last time. You're going to have leaders who try to help, and then you have a guy who will just lie about it to score political points, and this has consequences. Because people are afraid, and they've lost everything, and now they're trying to figure out, how do I apply for help? And some of them may be discouraged from getting the help they need. The idea of intentionally trying to deceive people in their most desperate and vulnerable moments. And my question is, when did that become okay?
This is so important, and I'm so happy he's saying this. When did this become okay? When is it okay to just stand there as a politician and overtly lie? Not just little white lie, literally just lie outrageously about what the other side is doing, or in this case, clearly isn't doing, is because it's a lie.
I'm not looking for applause right now.
Yeah. I'll clap that.
I want to ask Republicans out there, people who are conservative, who didn't vote for me, who didn't agree with me. I had friends who disagreed with me on every issue. When did that become okay? Why would we go along with that? I mean, if your coworkers acted like that, they wouldn't be your coworkers very long. If you're in business and somebody you're doing business with just outright lies and manipulates, you stop doing business with them.
Yeah.
Even if you had a family member who acted like that, you might still love them, but you tell them you got a problem. And you wouldn't put them in charge of anything. And yet, when Donald Trump lies or cheats or shows utter disregard for our Constitution, when he calls POWs losers or fellow citizens vermin, people make excuses for it. They think it's okay. They think, well, at least he's owning the libs. He's really sticking it to them. It's okay as long as our side wins. And by the way, I'm sorry, gentlemen, I've noticed this especially with some men who seem to think Trump's behavior, the bullying and the putting people down, is a sign of strength. And I am here to tell you that is not what real strength is. It never has been. Real strength is about working hard and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength is about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves. That is what we should want for our daughters and for our sons, and that is what I want to see in a president of the United States of America.
The whole of that speech was very effective, I think. Yeah, and just the last thing to show you, and I think that'll be the end of the video. I'll leave the other tabs for later. That, like, this next set of tabs is, yeah, worth dwelling on. But anyway, this is how disinformation works as well, by manipulating answers that are out there. So as this source says, wow, watch these two clips back to back. Fox News deliberately edited Biden's remarks to change the meaning of what he said. The FCC should revoke their broadcast license for spreading lies. I mean, yeah, this kind of manipulation is not great.
Do you have confidence that it will be a free and fair election and that it will be peaceful?
I'm confident it'll be free and fair. I don't know whether it will be peaceful.
Can you talk about how you're vice president?
I'm confident it'll be free and fair.
So the first one was Fox News, and then cuts away when he says, like, you know, I don't think it's going to be peaceful. The implication that, you know, my guys are, you know, that's one way you could read it, that my guys are going to make sure it's not peaceful.
I'm confident it'll be free and fair. I don't know whether it'll be peaceful. The things that Trump has said and the things that he said last time out when he didn't like the outcome of the election were very dangerous.
So here he goes on to explain that actually it's what Trump said and did after the election that led to violence. And of course, Fox cut that out.
If you notice, I noticed that the vice presidential Republican candidate did not say he'd accept the outcome of the election. They haven't even accepted the outcome of the last election. So I'm concerned about what they're going to do.
And there you go. So as I say with the way that certain article headlines are written, certain titles, and also the way that certain news programs are edited and how people's speeches are edited, it can be a form of disinformation or can manipulate the viewer or the reader. And Obama is just absolutely right in questioning how we've got to this point. How is it acceptable that people just outright lie? Just completely. Anyway, that's enough from me. There's quite a lot that has been going on, but that gives you a little taster, and that's clearly enough of me banging on in between. Take care, and I'll hit you with the rest of these sources over the next 24 hours or so.